All right. Welcome everybody to 211, week 3, which means that you have made it halfway through the course. We're over halfway done. If you've completed all the coursework to this point, you are doing great. If you're in a situation where you find yourself a little bit behind, as always, I'm going to encourage you to try to get caught up as soon as possible. If your life, or your lives, I should say, is anything like mine, you'll be in a situation if you put things off where something will come up that final week, either health, family issues, emergencies at work, computer problems, something will come up in order to prevent you from being able to get all your work done, if you're planning on just cramming everything right at the last minute. However, if you stay on top of things, give yourself plenty of time, stay caught up, things tend to work out, even though we still face those same problems, right? We're all facing those kinds of problems throughout these courses. So that is a given that we're all going to have challenges throughout these, and I've heard from a few of you have had a tough go this last few weeks. But I've encouraged you and just basically told you, look, there's still plenty of time in this course to get caught up, to get all your work done, to get most of the credit, to get to be on time from here. And if that's the case, you'll still get the grade you want from the class, even with a slight discount on turning things in on late a little bit. Okay, so today the main topic that we'll be covering is goals. We will spend a little bit of time towards the end talking about mission statements because that's part of the material as well. One of the required readings is about mission statements. This week, of course, priority 1 is to get caught up. Make sure you've got all your posts in for boards 1 and 2 as far as the discussion board. Stay caught up on your daily checkpoints. Last week, if you'll recall, there were 3 peer responses that were due in addition to the main response or the main post. This week's a little bit different. It'll require a main post and only 2 peer responses. So just week to week, it can change a little bit as far as how many peer responses are due. Just keep that in mind and make sure to read through all the instructions very carefully. Some of you last week, and I haven't graded all the discussions, but I could just tell from what I saw from the post, some of you missed a few of the details on last week's discussion board. We got the main part, which was, of course, the PowerPoint, but some of you missed the part where it asked you to discuss one of your favorite teachers and think about one of your favorite teachers and what they did, what their style was that made that class or that teacher so impactful or efficient for you. Tried to remind you, put it on both, I think, the announcement board and on the discussion board at some point last week. But if you found yourself not getting all the instructions for last week, don't fret. It's a nice reminder to make sure and be very careful about all the instructions, to read through them very carefully and even take down a few notes to make sure that you're not missing anything. And then if, like I say, you find yourself in a situation where you don't get full credit because you're missed out on something like that, then I always am encouraging you to go back in, edit, or repost, or add additional responses so that you can get additional credit even after the due date. Okay, so that's where we're at for the first 2 discussion boards. I think they've been great. I will finish grading by tomorrow. So everything that's been turned in on time to this point will have been graded by tomorrow, and you'll be able to see how you're doing halfway through the course. Just as a look ahead, week 4 has another graded discussion. So if you're coming from a non-PRO class, one of these pro classes, usually in week 4 you don't have a discussion board. If you're coming from a PRO class or pro class, you are already familiar with the format, which is that we have a discussion board every week, all 4 weeks, and then you have a short quiz, which is basically just some feedback on the course on ways that we can, improve it, and emphasize the positive things. So kind of a constructive criticism, and positive feedback to the course. So that's what will be coming up for next week. We'll talk more, of course, about it in the next week's session, but I wanted to give you a look ahead and make sure you knew what was coming. As far as what we just barely learned about, just as a short recap to what we just barely learned about, we talked about learning styles, different types. We took a self-assessment, a quiz to see what kind of learning type we are more than others. Most of us probably scored some points in all 4 learning styles, all 3 learning styles. But then we probably had one that was more dominant than the others as far as our type. And that, of course, was the theme of the discussion board last week. The theme of our PowerPoint that we created last week was to give feedback from the quiz, and then also give feedback from the material that the quiz gave on how we can better learn based on knowing our learning type. And then I also introduced a short video from, you know, basically a think tank that basically said, look, if you think too much about learning types as a teacher, you may miss the point, which is you need to be teaching using all the different learning types so that people can learn most effectively and remember things. If you use all the learning types, then it's going to capture more of the class, obviously, from an understanding standpoint, and you're also going to be able to help everyone be able to remember the material better if you can connect by using different modalities as far as different ways of teaching. So I think that's important as we, learn to become better business communicators, learn to help, groups of people. Usually those groups of people, we're going to have to, make sure and implement and focus on all the learning types. Now, when we're trying to help our children one-on-one, or if we're in a group, a setting where we're a supervisor or manager at a business, and we know that one of our employees learns best or works best if we approach them in a certain way, then obviously we should emphasize that certain way and try to help them the best we can, and be cognizant of that so that we can emphasize the aspect of learning that they best learn by and help them to succeed. We talked a little bit about self-efficacy, and self-efficacy, I think, is a really important theme. The better we understand ourselves and are self-aware about how we learn and how we best are able to succeed, the better we're able to have a quiet, calm confidence about ourselves in being able to accomplish things and being able to be successful at the tasks that we're given. That's self-efficacy, right? That confidence that we can accomplish the tasks that are given to us. And the way that we enable ourselves or allow ourselves to be most successful is that we understand, right? Just kind of keep thinking back to that NBC, the more you know, right? That those ads, I don't know if they even have them anymore, the public service announcements about the more you know. Well, in this case, the more you know about your learning style and about how you can be successful from a learning standpoint, the better you position yourself to be successful within the workplace. So, and that is self-efficacy, the confidence to be able to accomplish the tasks at hand. So let's talk a little bit about goals tonight. Goals can be kind of they can be a situation for many people where when we talk about goals, their eyes kind of gloss over, they kind of roll their eyes and they think, I don't know about goals. They might say something like, I've never been successful, or they might think something like, well, this is just something that I do every year because people tell me I'm supposed to, but I don't really follow through, and I don't ever accomplish what it is that I set out to do. So sometimes that can become a downward spiral as far as our goal setting. Year after year of failure when it comes to goals and goal setting can perpetuate itself. We can lack our confidence or self-efficacy in our own goal setting, right? And our own ability to accomplish those goals and stay disciplined to accomplish those goals. And so it can be a challenge. So if you've had in the past opportunity to set goals and then had them fail, your own confidence in your ability to set goals and then be successful might be compromised, and you might feel like, well, I'm not really good at goals. I don't really follow through, and I haven't been able to make them work in the past. I would encourage all of you to reset, try to whitewash your thinking and your predispositions about goal setting for this class. And that'll be difficult to do because you'll all come with your own perspective on how goals have treated you in the past. If you've been highly successful with goals, you're going to be highly motivated to set new ones and to accomplish new things. If you've had some setbacks when it comes to goals, or just haven't ever had a success that you can point to as far as goal setting and following through with those goals and accomplishing something important, then it will be a lot more challenging. But I will tell you that if you'll clean the slate, clean the board, erase, the past when it comes to your lack of success when it comes to goals, if that's what the case has been. Start with a clean slate and think of something and use the concepts when it comes to goal setting that we'll talk about tonight. I think you'll position yourself, you'll be very well positioned for accomplishing and experiencing success when it comes to goals. So one of the things that we do very commonly when it comes to goal setting is we set goals, we're not motivated, we're not disciplined, and in the end we don't even put much effort into it, right? And then we kind of beat ourselves up for not doing it. And so we'll talk about some key things that need to go into goal setting. It's a lot more than just coming up with something to do, or to aspire to or to accomplish. There's a lot more that can go into it, and if you do put in the effort up front, you will be much more successful. But here are some basic concepts. Zig Ziglar is one of the premier consultants to salespeople in the United States. He still has a lot of material. He goes around and often speaks and gets paid to speak to different businesses about accomplishing sales. And people in selling businesses, which is almost every single kind of industry has sales, right? But people in high pressure sales environments absolutely have to be goal-driven folks. They have to have goals. They have to be pushing towards something, because if they don't, they won't ever, be a top salesperson. It almost always requires some competitiveness and somebody who's driven and has the ability to set goals and then to follow through with them, be disciplined about following through with them. So Zig Ziglar says a goal properly set is halfway reached. So this goes to what we've talked about earlier, which is if we'll put in the effort up front, and some of the required readings and one of the required videos speaks to this week. If we put in the right effort up front, it doesn't mean we're going to be successful in our goal, but it does mean we'll have a much higher likelihood of success. Like Zig Ziglar says, and I completely agree with this, if we effort the goal setting part enough and put enough thought into that process, we're already halfway towards our goal. Okay? You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And this is a great quote, because I think a lot of us have, kinds of these goals, these aspirations, lose 50 pounds, make $1 million, get a great job. All these kinds of goals are wonderful. They're excellent aspirations, but we got to break those goals down into something a little bit more achievable or attainable, and into smaller steps. Or it might just be kind of this goal that's out there that we think about once in a while, but we're not ever accomplishing anything or really making significant effort towards that. So if I have a goal to pay off my mortgage that's a 30-year mortgage in 20 years, well, I can set up exactly what I need to do on a month-to-month basis in order to do that. I probably need to add $300, $400, $500 to my mortgage each month, to my payment, and that will usually, depending on your rate and the amount and things like that, that will usually shave off about 10 years from your mortgage. So it's very concrete. It's very specific. It's something that I can, that I better know in my mind that I can add those additional dollars, or at least effort, getting close to that, or I shouldn't even have a goal like that. It's a nice aspiration to pay off your mortgage sooner, right? Pay off your home sooner. But unless I'm going to be disciplined about adding that extra payment and calculating it out and finding exactly how I'm going to be able to do that, then once again, we might not be in a situation where we've got the right goal. But the point is, that's a 20-year goal, right? That I just described, as far as the mortgage. And it's going to take a lot of patience to stick with that for 20 years. But most of the biggest and best goals that people set and then accomplish have to do with some significant accomplishment that takes daily and weekly and monthly discipline, right? In small steps along the way. So, want to read a big book, you got to start the first page, right? We want to lose a little bit of weight, we've got to start with that first, workout and maybe that first meal that's a little bit more healthy. We got to get pointed in the right direction right from the beginning. And that's something we can accomplish, right? We can properly set a goal, and we can get pointed in the right direction overnight. We don't have to continue down the wrong path. We can turn. And I think that's a message of hope. People get discouraged by long-term goals and how long it's going to take and how hard it's going to be. But a big success is taking yourself on a path or a rut that you're in, whether it be financially, health-wise, with your family, spiritually, whatever it is, career-wise, school-wise, and just facing yourself in the right direction. Getting turned in the right direction is a big step in obviously getting towards our goal. And I, use this as an opportunity, obviously, to applaud all of you for taking courses and looking to accomplish a degree. Because when we talk about these goals, a degree, boy, that's going to be a hard goal, right? It's going to take us a few years potentially. It's going to take a lot of classes. It's going to take a lot of different classes. You're going to have to go through a lot of different professors and hoops just to jump through all these things in order to get that degree. And it's a great goal. It's a huge accomplishment. And I applaud all of you for at least being pointed in the right direction, right? Even though you might be new or early to this degree process of, this process of getting your degree, you're on the path, and that's a big first step. That's sometimes the hardest part, right, is getting started. Another quote, it's better to be at the bottom of the ladder you want to climb than at the top of the one you don't. This has to do with making sure that directionally, again, we're focused on the right thing. A lot of people will look at them and say, wow, that was a great accomplishment. If we ask them, they might say, actually, it's a regret. I wish I wouldn't have focused on that in life. And this has to do with a lot of people. They get to the end of their lives, right? We tend to look at some people that financially have a lot of stuff, have amassed a lot of wealth, and at the end of their life, that may be a significant regret that they worked too much or that they focused on things too much and not people and relationships and family and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we put, once again, some thought into what it is that we really want. If we are just kind of aimlessly, allowing other people to determine for us the kinds of things we want to accomplish, obviously that can come with some regrets later on. When the statistics come out where they interview people on their deathbed on things that they regret, one of the most common ones is that they spent too much time on things that didn't matter and spent too little time with the things that did. So goals can help us, can help us to direct and focus the time that we spend each day on the things that are most important. All of us are going to have to do some things, right? We've got to make a living, we've got to take care of our family, we've got to take care of ourselves, and we've got to have some leisure time, obviously. But any one of those aspects of our life can spin out of control and can end up being the focus of our life without us even trying to make them the focus of our lives, because things get so busy and complicated, right, for a lot of us. In order to keep control of what it is that we're focused on, goals help us to direct our energy towards things that are truly important to us. So if nothing else, goals can help us align our values, right, the things that we think are most important, with the time that we spend each day accomplishing things. Another one, a greater danger for most of us is that our aim is too high and miss it. Isn't that our aim is too high and miss it, but it's too low and we reach it. So I personally like this quote a lot. One of the things we're going to talk a lot about in this class as far as goal setting is to make sure that what we're trying to aspire to is realistic. And when we talk about making sure that our goals are realistic, it might mean that we need to make sure and have a high aspirational goal, but break it down into very small segments and very small time frames so that we can have successes. It's not that our goal, our overarching goal, is going to be really, really small and really, really so small that that's not meaningful, that it's not impactful in our lives, okay? Because the temptation when we think about goals and getting to successful goals is to make something so attainable and so realistic that it really isn't an impactful, end result. What could be an impactful end result is years from now or months from now, when we, after putting significant effort into something, and then we could break down, like your degree, for example, by class, by week, by checkpoint, by day, having success every day. My goal is to make sure and get my checkpoint done, and always at every day be totally caught up in every single class. So that might be your goal, okay? But obviously the overarching goal is your degree. If your only goal was today to get caught up and to be caught up, that's an accomplishment. But what Michelangelo is saying here is that a lot of folks get stuck kind of in these goals that don't really move the needle, that don't really change, you know, the world, don't really change their world, don't change their family, don't change really the direction that they're in. And of course, you'd expect someone like Michelangelo to big thinker, philosopher, to say, look, if we really want to impact something and really be a game changer, really impact the world, we've got to have, set our sights a lot higher than most of us do when it comes to just what we're trying to accomplish. J.C. Penney, of course, the founder of J.C. Penney's. Give me a stock clerk with a goal, and I'll give you a man who will make history. Give me a man with no goals, and I'll give you a stock clerk. Just a thinker, just an interesting, the position that you're in, the job that you're in. I think one of the important messages of this, that the job that you're in doesn't define how aspirational and how big your goals can be to really make a difference and do something impactful, right? Accomplish something big. So if you're working part-time at McDonald's, that doesn't mean, okay, that you're stuck, that there's nowhere to go, that you don't have big goals, that you can't change the world. You might have a great job and might not have any goals. And basically, I think what J.C. Penney is saying is that you have little ability to change the world and to really make a big impact on this life if you have no goals. Even if you've got, even if you had things handed to you, and even if things have been, you've been fairly successful as the world sees success. Take somebody who has no position of authority or position of influence, but has good goals and is consistent with their goals, and they can accomplish a lot. I think a good example of that are a lot of folks who immigrate here, don't speak English, but have a goal to get their children educated, right? And to create a life that's much better for their children than it was for them. So they work and they work and they work, and they maybe work 2 or 3 jobs that don't pay very much, but they are laser focused on making sure to get their children an opportunity to get good schooling and to get a good education so that they have opportunities. And it's amazing how many second and third generation immigrants to this country have phenomenal jobs, doctors, business owners, people who have been given that opportunity by parents and grandparents who just worked really, really hard, right? Had no station of influence in life, never ran a business, never had what we would think of as significant success in business or in their careers. But I don't think anybody can argue with the success of their children or grandchildren if they were able to accomplish education because their parents facilitated it, right? And were really focused on it. I think there's lots and lots of examples of that here in the United States, which is a cool thing that happens here in America with opportunities and with people who are just willing to work hard and then give their children and grandchildren a chance through education. And you all are giving yourself a significant opportunity to really make a difference, both for your families and for your future posterity, by accomplishing additional education like you are through a degree like this. Another quote: "This one step, choosing a goal and sticking to it, changes everything." So just don't want to downplay the fact that if you're willing to just come up with a goal, something that's meaningful to you, and actually be disciplined enough to stick with it for at least a time, can really change the complete trajectory of your life. Think about that phone call you made, or that email, online response that you had to getting a degree. Again, that one decision, that one maybe even just kind of flippant decision to do that, change the trajectory of your life. If you'll complete it and follow through with it and get that degree, it might open doors it will open doors that just would have never been opened before. and give you opportunities that could change really the trajectory of your life and your posterity and people around you. I mean, it just has such a huge impact. Okay, last quote, an unknown author, life is short, fragile, and does not wait for anyone. There will never be a perfect time to pursue your dreams and goals. So, if we, I think I've mentioned before in this class, if life can happen to us, it will, right? If we don't take control of our lives and have a, and create a direction and trajectory for our lives, life will create a direction and trajectory for us. And most times that direction and trajectory will be stagnation, that will be difficulty, that will be challenging, it will be a situation where we don't accomplish, the types of things that will leave us, regret-free when we get to the point where we're going to pass, right? A big part of goal setting is taking control, or at least creating balance and taking control of our lives. And that might sound, kind of fluffy, like, no, that's not, goals don't mean that we take control of our life, but it's absolutely true. That goals can be the difference of us being in control of the direction of our lives versus being out of control and allowing life to happen to us instead of being in control of what happens with our lives. Okay? All right, just some quotes. I think they're all impactful. I think they're all helpful in what we're talking about this week. So what are you doing this week when it comes to the discussion board? You're going to create an Excel table. Okay, the Excel table is going to have at least 3 columns, at least 2 different goals. It's going to follow the SMART acronym, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. It'll make more sense here in just a second, unless you've already listened to the video or watched the video for the week and read one of the required readings. They both talk about SMART goal setting. How will you do it? What obstacles will you have? Those are the kinds of things that we want to address this week on the discussion board. And we want to accomplish that by creating a table in Excel, as I just mentioned, with at least 3 columns on 2 goals, 2 different goals. And these are goals that we're going to try to accomplish, and we're going to go through the SMART system to describe, how it accomplishes each of the SMART elements. And we'll talk about that here in a sec. What kind of obstacles will you come up with? How will you overcome them? And just as an example of that, an example of a SMART goal, for example, would be getting your degree, right? Finishing your degree. So I'd go through the SMART steps, right? Those different aspects of SMART that we'll talk about here in just a sec, and write through what kinds of things I am doing to accomplish that goal, or how it applies, to the goal of getting my degree. You might have another one, a goal to read to a child every single night for the next month, right? So we'd go through the SMART elements and fill them out based on reading to your child for the next month. Okay? Can be a big goal, can be a small goal, but we need 2 different goals, and you're going through the different elements of SMART. You're talking about different obstacles that might get in the way and what you will do to overcome them. And that is the main part, the bulk of the main post for this week's discussion board. In addition to that, like last week, there's kind of a part of the discussion board instructions that's a little bit hidden if you don't carefully read through it. There's a paragraph that talks about interviewing a successful person about their dreams and goals, about goal setting and how they've accomplished goal setting in their lives. So what we want to do is try to find somebody that we feel like is a successful person. That's, of course, your definition of that. It doesn't have to be financial success. It could be success with their family, success raising children, success with their spouse, success with their work life, success with finding balance and happiness. You might just see somebody that seems happy, has nothing to do with any of the things I just mentioned, but they've somehow found happiness. And so you want to ask them about their goal setting, about their dreams and aspirations. And that's a little touchy-feely, but it is something that I think most folks, especially successful folks, they'll have some good answers and some insightful things that they could share with you. So make sure that you accomplish that as well. Don't forget that part of this week's discussion board. And then finally, just make sure that you understand that there are 2 responses this week. You can obviously do more than that, but just make sure you get at least the 2 responses that are required this week for full credit. Okay? So pretty straightforward, not a hard discussion board this week by any means, but again, trying to have you practice one of the software elements. So last week we practiced using PowerPoint. This week we're using Excel and a table within Excel. So that's always a good practice. And if you have any questions on that, you can go to the computer lab. I've posted an announcement about the computer lab that can help with creating an Excel sheet, if an Excel table, if you're not familiar with that or just want a little bit of help. Also, Natalie Butler is available to help you with this assignment as well. If you're in touch with her, she can give you some feedback. And then I'm happy, if you like to zip me a quick email and ask me a particular question, or you and I can set up a time for a few minutes in an evening and go over, how to accomplish this Excel sheet as well. Like I did last week, I probably will post some different examples of this from previous classes that I've taught, just so you can get a feel for what it is that that this Excel table can look like and accomplish. Okay. All right, so let's talk about SMART. So we have a required reading this week, and then a short video, about a minute-long video, so very, very short. The required readings for this week, by the way, and the video for this week are only going to take you about 5 minutes, right? 2 articles that are just a real quick read, and then 1 very quick video. So that'll give you more opportunity to focus in on the interview that you need to do, and then also maybe some outside material that you can find, but also getting your Excel sheets done, or your table done. So shouldn't be a difficult week as far as the required readings and the video, but there is a required reading and a video this week that talk through the SMART process for goal setting. And the S, okay, so each one is an acronym for a word, right? So it's SMART, but it starts with specific. So one of the keys of goal setting, effective goal setting, is to make sure that you're very specific about the goal that you're trying to accomplish. So if I say I want to get a degree, that would not really fit this specific goal setting mantra, which is you need to be very specific. So what kind of degree? What what type of degree, right? So associates, bachelor's, master's, and in what? Through where? These are answers that we need to be as specific as we possibly can. It doesn't mean that they won't change. They might change, and we don't have to be rigid about not letting them change. Any aspect of a goal might change. In fact, most times aspects of a goal do change. We need to be willing to make them, change at some point if it makes sense. But the more specific they are to start, the more reasonable it is to assume that we'll be able to accomplish and set the type of goal that we can get to. Needs to be measurable. You need to be able to measure when you've accomplished it. So if you say, I want to get healthy, that's pretty vague, right? We don't just arrive one morning and say, well, I feel healthy. Or we might say that, but we might not be healthy, right? Or it might be just so vague that we don't know for sure if we've accomplished it. It might be like our goal of getting more education might be, we might have a goal to say, okay, I want to get a bunch more education. Well, we need to be able to measure that. We need to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take 5 classes, or I'm going to take 1 class, or I'm going to read 2 books, or I'm going to, can you see how these are specific and also measurable? I have a certain goal that I'm trying to get to. So if I'm trying to get healthy, maybe my goal is to do 20 sit-ups, 20 push-ups, and jog for 10 minutes each day. Okay, and just very simple, right? Very straightforward, but it's something highly measurable. It's not just go running, right? Because go running could be 30 seconds one day, it could be an hour the next day. And unfortunately, when it comes to human nature, if we are vague about our goal, okay, and we're vague about the specific measurables that we're trying to accomplish, we'll usually slide into a situation where we justify going to the low end of whatever it is that we're trying to do, right? So if I say, I want to do push-ups every day, the first couple of days I might be gung-ho, I might do a bunch of them, I might get really sore, and then you start to justify less and less, and less, and at some point we're not, accomplishing anything of value, right? We're not moving the needle. It needs to be attainable. So, this can be you can have a high aspirational goal that's just a lofty goal, but it still needs to be something that you can actually obtain. And one of the things that I always tell people is that you might have a high aspirational goal at the top of your, of your goal sheet, and then what's truly obtainable in the short term or attainable in the short term is maybe short term measurable goals that help get you pointed in the right direction of that high aspirational goal. Let me just give you an example. If your goal is to get a great job, okay, that might take a few years, right, to get the right things done so you can get a great job. One of them might be getting a degree, and getting a degree might require lots of classes, and lots of classes might just require registering in the first place. Might require getting that first class done and getting the grade that you were hoping for from it. So if we can break down even the really high aspirational goals, then we're in business. If we can't make any short-term, more obtainable goals, then we might be in a situation where we're a little bit in trouble. Okay. So let me give you an example of one that's aspirational that might be kind of difficult. I might have an aspiration to have all my children happily married with their families in the future. And my two girls are now ages 10 and 12. So that's, of course, a great aspiration for them to be happily married at some point if that's what they choose, and to be able to have children. But as you can imagine, a lot of that, first of all, I can't control. And second of all, that's a nice aspiration, but I would have to break down into more meaningful things that I can do now to help guide them in that direction. And so, it's one thing to have aspirations. It's another thing to have something measurable and specific and attainable that I can do in the short term to make progress towards that goal, even if it is a high aspirational goal. Okay. I've got to be realistic. So this is a key one. A lot of people will say, I'm going to not eat any sugar or any carbs, and I'm going to work out 2 hours a day, and I'm going to lose 100 pounds in the next 3 months. And while those all might be great goals, right? I'm not trying to demean those goals. They might not be realistic. Okay, they might not be. They very well could be, but I'm just saying sometimes when I hear people's goals, and sometimes when I set goals myself, they're not very realistic. I've got to make sure and break them down into smaller pieces, or be realistic about what I can actually do, what my body can do, how much time I have in the day, how disciplined I'm going to be, how focused I'm going to be, how motivated I'm going to be about a particular goal. And I've got to be realistic about that. And this goes back to something we've talked about in this course before, but the whole concept of self-awareness, knowing yourself, being honest and true to yourself, which sometimes is a learning process, right? Some of us set goals that are just completely insane because we haven't really thought through who we are and what we can do, and been realistic with ourselves about what it is that we can actually accomplish. And perhaps it'll take some baby steps, that old What About Bob movie, that where you got to just take some baby steps and make sure and have some successes before we can get to these crazy, what we'd call maybe crazy and not very realistic goals. Well, one person's realistic goal could be another person's, crazy dream, right? So I could go to the gym and find a trainer, and they might say, hey, my goal is to work out 3 hours a day. I eat, only green, smoothies all day long. And I'm, at a 5% body fat level. Well, for me, that's not realistic at all to accomplish that anytime soon. It might not ever be realistic for me to accomplish that because I'm not enough motivated to spend that much time every day doing what they're doing, right, to be healthy. So there are things that I can do, though, most definitely to be healthy, but I've just got to be realistic about my time constraints, about my motivations, about my abilities, and have confidence that you can accomplish something, but don't be unrealistic about, your ability to get it done. My own something that I fail at quite a bit is when I set goals to spend a certain amount of time doing something. And that whatever my goal is, I try to make it pretty extreme, right? Like if I'm going to exercise for an hour, I'm going to read books for an hour every morning. You know, those are all great goals, but when time goes on, I end up being in a situation where I can't justify spending that much time in, you know, every morning doing it, or it conflicts with other very important things that I'm trying to accomplish. And I end up failing at that goal because I can't spend that much time doing it. So, you know, one of the things that I have to be patient with myself about is setting maybe smaller, more attainable, more realistic time goals, you know, of accomplishing something for a certain amount of time each day, and then maybe ratcheting that up if I can prove to myself that I can accomplish even the smaller amounts, right? And once again, back to the self-efficacy, if we can have some small successes, those will build on themselves until we are able to set goals that are realistic but still significant because of our confidence level and our ability to follow through and make it happen. But initially, most of us need to set, you know, smaller, more attainable goals, not because it's not important to have big aspirational goals, but because it's important for us to have successes and be disciplined and show ourselves and prove to ourselves and be confident about our ability to have success with something that we've set to do. And then finally, the T on SMART is timely. We have to have some kind of time frame that keeps us motivated, that sets a goal somewhere in sight. It's not so far out, like we talked about with the mortgage. 20 years is not timely. That's too long, right? It's a great goal, but it's too long. So how do we set a goal that is more timely? Well, we set goals that have to do with 3 and 6 and 12 months out, making sure that that excess payment of $400 is happening for the short term, right? I'm going to do it this month. Then I'm going to do it next month. And those are all successful goals that I had that I'm accomplishing along the way, or at least at the beginning, right? Until it's an absolute habit, then I don't even have to set the goal anymore. If it's an absolute habit because I've really established that extra $400 and I don't even have to worry about it from month to month because I worked hard at it initially and accomplished it for the first, 6 or 12 months, then I can move on to something else and put my energy towards something else as a goal, right? The person who wakes up at 5 every morning and works out every day for an hour and reads books for an hour every morning and meditates for half an hour and has been doing it for 10 years, they don't need to set a goal to do that anymore, right? That's part of who they are. But for most of us, we don't have those kinds of things as part of who we are, other than just going to work, eating food, and going to sleep, right? So part of taking control of our lives, again, is setting smaller, attainable goals that are realistic, but making them timely, making them something that we can accomplish in the short term, have success, and move on, and either reset that goal or change the goal or do something more with the goal, okay? But something I can accomplish in the near enough term, maybe it's part of a bigger goal, but I can accomplish something in the short term that I can measure that's more timely in the short term, keeps me motivated in the short term. One of the examples I hear on this one all the time is folks who, make goals to exercise, but know themselves well enough or self-aware once again enough to know that if they don't set something out there that's a hard and fast date, that they probably won't do it. So some people who are kind of borderline exercisers but know that they need to do that will set like a half marathon out for 6 months out, right? And they will make sure that within 6 months they're ready to do that. But the only way they can, they can stay disciplined and motivate themselves enough to accomplish their workout goals and accomplish their health goals is to have something like that that's very time sensitive, right? That we've got to make sure and have a pretty rigid and disciplined schedule to make sure we can do that. And I find myself in that pool. Not that I've scheduled a half marathon anytime recently, but that I tend to need, something competitive, a biggest loser type contest, something specific that I can be competitive with and try to accomplish that's more than just a goal to work out every day, right? At least as far as exercise is concerned. And a lot of other people are like that too. Some people don't need anything like that. They can stay highly motivated and disciplined even without something competitive and timely that they're working towards. All right, so one of the things that I just wanted to point out tonight is that most workplaces do have goals, most management groups do have goals, but most managers don't require specific goals of you personally. So a lot of managers have, requirements, right? Different goals that they're trying to accomplish for the team. But a lot of managers and supervisors have a hard time translating that into individual goals for you and everybody else on the team. So for example, if you work at Walmart on the floor as a stalker slash retail, person, your supervisor for every single shift has goals that that the store manager has brought down from corporate, right? From regional corporate management. And you might not even know what those are because supervisors and managers sometimes either don't communicate what those goals are, or even if they do, they don't make them helpful for you and I to even understand what we're supposed to do about those goals. So let's say one of the goals is to have profitability, the profit margins go from 19% to 20%. Well, you and I as a stock person aren't going to, that doesn't mean anything to us, right? That's not something that we know of any way that we can actionably help the profit margin for that location based on what we do, stocking shelves. A good manager, a good supervisor, somebody that can really help us to achieve and to feel fulfillment and to be a successful team will make every single goal that they have and break them down to smaller, more attainable goals for each and every single person on the team. And they may be different from person to person, right? If my job is different than the next guy's, my goal should probably be a little different as far as how I can help the whole team, how my part of the team can help us accomplish what those goals are. Having said that, a lot of, like I say, supervisors, managers, even though they have goals, they don't necessarily trickle those down the way they should to employees and make them specific actionable items following the SMART, the acronym SMART. They might tell us what the goals are, but they don't communicate how we can really achieve those goals or help the team achieve those goals. So most managers that require goals don't help with the accountability or motivation for the goals. So even if they do communicate what those goals are, they don't help us to achieve them or keep us accountable or motivate us to do them. So this is the how not to be a manager, how not to be a supervisor lesson here for a second. Managers and supervisors need to be cognizant of their goals, right? Need to be aware of them, of course. Most managers and supervisors are. They're getting it beat down their throat by upper level management or by ownership. However, most managers and supervisors, like I say, do a poor job of keeping their team accountable, keeping their team motivated, keeping their team accomplishing their own goals, individualized goals to help towards that main goal that their team has. Having said all that, most managers are highly impressed by folks who are driven. And how do we determine that somebody's driven? Usually we determine somebody's driven because they have goals. They have direction. They have something they're trying to achieve. And if you want to impress managers, supervisors, get opportunities, get promotion, get hired, you can do a lot of good for yourself as far as impressing folks who are in the positions of power by being a self-motivated person, someone who takes a situation, whether or not they are told they have to have goals, they're going to have goals for their workplace. Whether or not they are told they have to do certain things, they're going to have goals to make their situation better and achieve better results than even what the minimum expectations are. These at school, in a classroom setting, and sometimes even a work setting, we refer to those people sometimes as brown nosers, right? They're the people trying to do over and above. They're trying to go over and above. They're trying to do better than what is required. Some people are really annoying when they do this. Other people, if they're just trying to be the best person, right, and they're not trying to make anybody else look bad, they're not trying to be better than anybody else, but they're just trying to be the best them. If we can see that that's genuinely who they are, I don't think anybody's bothered by that. And I guarantee that managers and supervisors will eventually, if not that manager or supervisor, but somebody is going to see that person for their value, and they're going to get opportunities and get hired into different positions that open a lot of doors for themselves because they were driven, right? Back to that concept of being driven. not just by somebody who's putting the fear of all that's holy into them, they're going to lose their job if they don't, but somebody even without that kind of motivation that's willing to set goals and try to be their best self, and try to accomplish, for the good of the team. And like I say, most of us within the workplace, need goals to succeed and to progress, to make progress. And so, again, if we get stuck in a rut where we don't have any goals, we don't have any aspirations, we don't have anything we're actually working towards or trying to accomplish, we can be in a situation where we go months, years, most of our lives without really making a material difference directionally or with our trajectory of our lives in a positive direction. Because like I say, life is so busy and so hectic and so hard sometimes that unless we've taken control of it, right, and whipped it into our, we're the master of our own, destinies. That's not flowery talk. That's real. Unless we do that, we're in a situation where we're just kind of aimlessly, like a wave of the ocean, like a tumbleweed in the wind. We just kind of go with wherever the winds take us, wherever the current takes us, and usually that means that we don't end up where we're trying to get. Okay, like those quotes we talked about. Getting focused on the right direction is a big part of it. Having goals that we've thought through is a big part of it. Making sure that our goals are something that's important to us, really important. Anyway, wanted to talk about the workplace though, because I think a lot of people do a great job making personal goals, or at least they set them, right? Doesn't necessarily mean they follow through with them, but a lot of people make goals. They just don't think about it in terms of work. They think that they're supposed to wait for their manager or supervisor to make goals for them and just play along, right, with whatever they're told to do. When in reality, most of us have capacity within our workplaces to achieve some goals and be excellent at some different things within our workplace of our own volition, right? We are the masters of our own ship when it comes to even our workplace environment, and we can do more with that workplace environment. And if we do more with that workplace environment, we can usually get better opportunities for ourselves and promotion and opportunities for better jobs and positions. All right, so we talk about the 5 F's of most goal setting, okay? Fitness, friends or family, finances or work, fun, and faith. And some of us do a great job planning vacations every year. That would be in that fun category, right? We make a goal every year to take a great trip or go on a cool vacation. Or, we make a goal often, even without consciously thinking about it, to go have fun, as a family, or go have fun individually or personally. A lot of people do a pretty good job at that one. A lot of people talk about the fitness one, right? We hear that one all the time, especially at the new year. The gyms get packed at the new year with folks who have these fitness goals. Some of the ones that go without much goal setting are our spirituality or our faith-based goals, and whatever that means for you. Meditation doesn't have to be necessarily, doesn't have to do anything with religion necessarily, but it can have a lot to do with our inner, peace that we have, and it might have to do with meditation. It might have to do with some form of spirituality, that whatever that might be. But that's been studies have shown that helps us to have balance in our lives when we have some form of spirituality, wherever that form is. Like I say, it doesn't need to be necessarily religion in this case at all. But then I think we all can agree that friends and family, and maybe you just call this category relationships, but they can't call it that because it doesn't start with an F. But focusing on relationships and having goals around the relationships that we have to improve them, to be a better friend or family member to other people, would be highly potent. It would be just such a potent thing to help relationships in your life if you had some specific goals, right? Use that SMART method to enhance them. And then, like I say, our finances get a lot of attention as far as budgeting and things like that. We talk about that a lot when it comes to goal setting. What we don't talk about a lot is that workplace environment goal setting, where independent, as we've talked about, independent of a manager or supervisor telling us what we're supposed to do, we are going to have our own goals to be better or to be excellent even at what it is that we do within our job description, whatever job description that is. Okay, so if the bare minimum working at McDonald's is to show up, okay, and to do, what's required of you within your job, setting a goal within that workplace environment would be something over and above, what it is that's necessary, right? Doing something a little better, doing something a little more, doing something a little different, beyond what's just the basic requirement of the job. And I know for a lot of you, that's like, why would I ever do more than what's required of me? But I promise you that if you have a track record of doing that, whether or not you feel like you're in dead-end jobs, I promise you opportunities will start to present themselves. I mentioned McDonald's. I have a high school friend who worked at McDonald's all throughout high school. And I remember multiple times thinking, man, this is a smart guy. Why is he working at McDonald's? Because during high school for me, I had a lot of different jobs that paid really well, kind of sales related jobs that paid really well. And I felt like I was being really smart, about how I picked different jobs and did different things to make more money. Well, in hindsight, this friend of mine ended up taking over as a regional manager for a franchisee of McDonald's. He runs about 5 different locations. He's the regional manager over the location managers for a franchise owner for McDonald's in Southeast Idaho. And he makes a very good living. He does a very good job at what he does. And in hindsight, all those years where I thought, why are you working at McDonald's? But he just put his head down. He's a good, honest guy. He was dependable. That's a big part of, right, what you need to be. But also on top of that, he's a smart guy. And I think he always had goals to be good and excellent at what he did. And because he did that, he impressed managers and franchisees, even at a place like McDonald's, where he's been given opportunities to really succeed and excel at what he does. And a lot of new opportunities and work options that are good compensation, good pay, and really good opportunities. Another example here in Utah, a gentleman who worked for Kneaders here, and if you're in Utah, you'll be familiar with Kneaders. If you're outside of Utah, it's kind of like a Paradise Bakery. If you're familiar with that, they do breads and soups and sandwiches and rolls and things like that. They're just known for kind of artisan breads and things like that, and very popular, store or brand here in Utah for breads and sandwiches. Well, this gentleman was working just during college for Kneaders as just somebody at the desk, taking cashier, right? And he did such a great job and was so reliable and so impressive that the owner, the original founder of Kneaders, allowed him to buy 3 locations from him and financed it so that he didn't have to, he didn't have a lot of money, but allowed him to buy in over time, just because he was so grateful for this guy and the great work that he had done as eventually as a supervisor and a manager of one of his locations, that he allowed him to buy into the franchise. Now this guy's worth millions of dollars. And this was just a kind of what a lot of us would look at as kind of a dead end job, just a little retail job at a shop selling sandwiches and breads. But tried this person was reliable. Once again, it's dependable. Those things are important, but went over and above just being reliable and dependable. Kind of stood out because he tried to be excellent. He tried to do things the right way, had goals for himself, and really made some effort to accomplish and do a great job. And so, anyway, story after story that we could point to. Those are just some ones that I've watched over my career, over my life, which isn't really long. I'm 36 years old this year, but 2 ones that stand out to me because they're people who were at normal jobs, right, but were given what I would call extraordinary opportunities because of how they approach their workplace environment. And whether or not they would tell you it was specific goals or not, I think it's easy to see from afar that they were trying to be excellent at their workplace and had goals to be better at different things and improve different systems. And that's really impressive, obviously, to owners and managers. So we talked about different categories. This could have everything to do with, for me, it could be, be a better dad, be a better husband, be a better disciple of, my religious, disciple of Christ in my case, as a Christian, be a financial guru, to spread financial literacy within the workplace that I'm in, and then to be more healthy. So those could be 5 things that I work on. At any given point, I might have sub little categories, little goals that have to do with all 5 of those different categories, right? I don't just have to have one. I can have small goals in each one of them that are highly attainable, that I can work out a little bit each day in order to be a little better at all those different things. Okay, so that's just an example of what kinds of things. Now, we don't have any time left, but I did want to spend a little bit of time on the 3rd required reading, which was about mission statements. And the way I wanted to look at this tonight, or had prepared to look at it, was looking at mission statements for corporations like Nordstrom's, IKEA, American Express, Harley-Davidson. American Express's mission statement is to be the world's most respected service brand. And in many ways, I think they have gone a long ways to accomplish this. When you think of American Express and getting customer service, those 2 things go right together. You're not going to get an automated system. You're going to be able to get somebody that can help you out, kind of a concierge type service. They're the ones that really came up with that approach first. Then Visa and American Express and everybody else has followed suit, and really over the years has really just tried to copy as much as they can what American Express has done, because they have been so successful at it. But Amex, perhaps more than any other credit card provider, and perhaps more than most companies, because of that mission statement to be the most respected service brand, not credit card company, service brand, they really have put in the effort and time and energy because of that high aspirational goal and mission statement, and they've been wildly successful at that. So have these other brands that I've got on this page, but we don't have time to cover them. The point is, you can do the same thing with yourself personally. Create a highly aspirational mission statement for yourself. What do you value? What do you want your life to mean? What do you want your life to what do you want your legacy to be? What are your talents? What are your strengths? What do you believe in most? And if you can create goals, right, that are consistent with your personal mission statement, okay, whatever it is, doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong answer to your personal mission statement, but whatever that personal mission statement is, then having goals that are consistent with that mission statement and the things that you value will be the ones that are most easily achievable, the ones that you can stay motivated by, the ones that you can stay disciplined for. Goals that don't fit your mission statement and the things that are most important to you are you're going to find yourself at odds with those goals sometimes, and impatient with them, and not motivated by them. Okay, so one of the things that I would suggest that you consider in a class like this, if you're coming up with goals, is to think through, spend some time, put in a little bit of effort on what your personal mission statement would be. Kind of look through some of these different companies that we've talked about: IKEA, Harley-Davidson, American Express, Nordstrom. These are companies that have an identity, right? They have a clear identity of what they're trying to accomplish as a company. And it's usually, Nordstrom's identity is not to be the best seller of clothes. American Express is not to be the best credit card, although that is a subcategory of what they're trying to do, right? Most of them are trying to be the best service organizations and provide the best products and value adds that they possibly can. If we can have something that we're trying to do personally that fits with who we are as a person, what we value, and then go down that road as far as our mission statement and fill out some goals that really support what it is that we're trying to accomplish as a person, then I think we'll have the most potential for success when it comes to, as long as we, follow the SMART method as well and overlay that in addition to the fact that we're consistent with our mission statement. I think we'll be highly successful with goal setting. That's all we have time for tonight. Have a great evening. Have a great week. Let me know if there's any questions or concerns, you get stuck anywhere. And like I say, look for grades to pop up here in the next little bit. All right. Have a great night.